You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming out and listening to The Real Short Box. My name is Donald, and we have a very special guest star today, one Christopher D. Turner, writer, actor, director, producer. Chris, go ahead and say hello to everybody.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Thanks for coming on, Chris. We really appreciate it. I know we've done a live podcast with you in the past. It was a lot of fun, so I thought we'd have you on to talk some holiday talk. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about movies with Santa.
And we're going to be ranking those, if I recall. So
Yeah.
This is going to be some exciting stuff. I know when I mentioned this subject to you before, you seemed really into it, and then you immediately gave me a list. It was a great list. And then I added a couple things, and we were ready to rock and roll. But in looking up and doing research for great Santa Claus, great Christmas type movies, we came across one, both of us actually. You came across it and I came across it, and then you convinced me. You said, you have to watch the trailer before we have this discussion. And I said, okay. And that's the movie Fat Man that has yet to come out, starring Mel Gibson and Walton Goggins and Chance Hurtsfield. Do you want to speak a little bit on that?
Well, you know, the first time I watched the trailer, I watched it a couple times because I was really confused. The first time I watched the trailer, I was like, is this on someone's YouTube channel? Is someone making like a fake trailer, like this fake thing about like Santa? Because it was just posted on Facebook or something, and I was just like, what? Like why would Mel Gibson do like a fake movie trailer? And then I watched it, and I was just like, Walton Goggins. I was like, wait a minute, this is looking legit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Santa give a kid coal, and then you see the kid say, F Santa, and you're like, oh, I see where this is going. And then you're like, okay, so this is like a hard version of Santa. This is like where other people have tried to go, and you know, I just think it's, you know, and then you see like Mel Gibson, and you know,
it's surprising. Yeah, it's like
after seeing it 4 or 5 times, I still don't know what to think about this movie. It's like I said, Walton Goggins makes me really interested to see it because I love him. He's a phenomenal actor. But I'm still mad at Mel Gibson. And it's like...
Yeah. Mel Gibson plays Kris Kringle in this, and he does makes a partnership with the U.S. military. He's like, I'll do this one-time gig. And then he gets kind of locked into a deadly battle of wits against an assassin who's hired by a 12-year-old who had received a lump of coal in his in a package for Christmas. So it's really weird. Like, the story itself is odd. Imagine a 12-year-old being so mad at Santa Claus. For starters, I don't think I even believed in Santa at the age of 12. I think, like, a lot of people tend to fall out of that belief earlier. So it's interesting that this kid's a little older, a 12-year-old, and that's great. You know, I don't mind that at all. In fact, we all know that Santa's real. So I mean, I just don't know if I approve of this version of Santa Claus. He seems pretty hardcore, in other words. But
yeah, I mean, we've seen hardcore Santas before,
right.
But this is, I think, a different. And it's like, you know, there was a comic book, I think it was one you gave me, where he was like this action hero, and it was really gory and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, but like it was like, it really brought me back. I was like, huh, yeah, I remember there was this comic book that a couple years ago that you gave me, and that was really, really awesome. And it was like he was using all these bombs and stuff.
It's funny because when I came to visit, Chris lives in Texas, so when I went to come and visit, you went with me to a couple comic shops, and one of the comic shops, I bought a Santa Claus type comic. It was a Spider-Man comic, and it had the Kingpin dressed as Santa Claus, and he was ripping off the beard, and he was trying to shoot at Spider-Man. And it's from the Dallas Chronicle, I believe is what the newspaper was from. It was from one of the newspapers in Dallas back in, I think it was the 70s or 80s. And I just thought it was hilarious. And I was like, I got to buy this thing. So I bought it. There's a really strong connection, by the way, with Christmas time and comic books, it's particularly Santa Claus. I do every year. I do themed walls where I'll do covers of comic books for particular seasons. For example, Halloween time, I'll do a wall covering of just Scarecrow comics covers from Batman books, and and around Christmas time, I'll do Santa Claus covers. Anything having to do with Santa Claus on the cover. Whether in some of them, like in an example with the Punisher, he's carrying a gun and he's wearing sunglasses, and in other cases, he's the bubbly, fun Santa Claus in a Superman book. So there's a big, deep connection with Christmas time, Santa Claus, and comic books. So don't think that we're ever straying too far from the topic at hand, which is going to be comic books. But tonight, it's going to be ranking Santa Claus films.
Yeah, I guess the point I was just trying to make is, like, I feel like this movie, they were trying to make it feel like a comic book. Like, I kind of had the feeling, and it kind of makes me interested, but it kind of, at the same time, it's like, this is not a movie I would normally go see, but there's nothing coming out anyway, and it's probably going to be online, so I'll probably watch it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like, for example, a movie that just came out not too long ago was Love and Monsters. Yeah, have you seen that one yet?
Yeah, I did watch it over the weekend. It was not bad.
It was very fun. It was a really fun, and I watched it for Halloween time because I wanted to watch something that related to monsters and stuff, and I thought that might be cool. And it ended up being really heartwarming and cute. And I was like, crap, like I could watch this around Thanksgiving and still get the same feels. It's a really entertaining film, so I highly recommend that. So let's go ahead and get started on our rankings. We have number 10 on our list of Santa Claus related movies that have Santa Claus in it that are just excellent. Number 10 is a Netflix original called The Christmas Chronicles. Now, this one stars Kurt Russell, Judah Lewis, Darby Camp, and Kimberly Williams. It also has a brief appearance from Miss Russell, which would be Goldie Hawn herself, who plays Mrs. Claus at the end of the film, and is supposed to have a larger role in the sequel when that does come out, which is supposedly this year or next, I believe. We are not quite sure, depending upon when Netflix decides to release it. I think it's this year, but I'm not 100%. But anyway, the topic, or the actual story of this movie is siblings Kate and Teddy Pierce hatch a scheme. They're going to try to capture Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. Of course, the plan goes awry, and the kids join forces with a somewhat jolly Saint Nick and his loyal elves to save the holiday before it's too late. Now, Kurt Russell plays Santa Claus, and his elves are played. This is the one thing, Chris, that really kind of, I wasn't sure how I felt when I first ran across them. The elves are all CGI, little looking, gerbily guinea pig creatures.
Yeah, and that is why I left this movie off that initial list.
Yeah, I think that they did that to bring in the children, the little kids, to enjoy more, but the theme itself was a little more adult, I would say, and that was enjoyable. So I think they tried to make a nice balance, a nice mix, and for a Netflix original, I think they did a pretty good job, to be honest. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie. It is one of those films that I think I'll revisit. I'll probably revisit definitely before the sequel. And I just wish that they had done something a little bit more imaginative or creative with the elves rather than just CGI creating little furry creatures. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this about the movie is like, Kurt Russell's very entertaining as Santa Claus. He's probably one of the more entertaining Santa Clauses I've seen in a movie. It was a nice, refreshing take on him, and so that really saved the movie. But the story was a little weak to me, and those elves, but he saves it, and so I feel it does fit as number 10 on our list. Like it is a rewatchable movie, and it is something I'd probably watch every Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very enjoyable. So that's number 10 on our list, The Christmas Chronicles. We're going to go ahead and go to number 9. Now, this one I pushed really hard for. Chris knows I pushed really hard for this one, simply because I feel like it's one of his stronger films, and it's also just such a good, heartwarming story in general. and that is Ernest Saves Christmas. Now, those that don't know, Ernest is a character created by Jim Varney, who is basically a jolly kind of, I don't want to say idiot, but kind of an idiot. He always stumbles into things and bumbles things and messes stuff up, but somehow ends up saving the day at the end. Very comical, very fun character that he created. This movie came out in 1988. Douglas Seal, I believe, played Santa Claus. If I recall, or was it Oliver Clark?
Great turn in Santa Claus, yes.
Yeah, that's right. He was looking for his successor in a hapless taxi driver played by Oliver Clark, who's right? Wasn't he looking for a successor, which ends up being Oliver? Yeah. And Ernest is a taxi driver that helps him try to find and create this successor. He had a children's show. This guy played by Oliver Clark, Joe Carruthers is the character name. And Ernest and Douglas Seal, aka Santa Claus, try to get Joe to be Santa Claus. Santa gets in unexpected trouble, and it's up to Ernest, along with a teen girl named Harmony, played by Noelle Parker, to assist Saint Nick with his important mission, or the future of Christmas could be in jeopardy. And that's a very scary thing for children, especially if you're watching. You don't want anything to happen to Santa Claus. You definitely don't want anything to happen to Santa Claus. This is just a very heartwarming film. It's got a really funny plot to it. Ernest, messes stuff up, of course, and then helps try to fix things and tries to convince this guy that he needs to be the next Santa Claus, that, Santa Claus himself is getting too old, and they pass on the mantle to another person. And this actually was an interesting idea before we actually got to the idea of the Santa Claus with Tim Allen, that there's successors that take over in the mantle of Santa Claus. So it was a cool premise and a very cool story. It was directed by John Cherry III, for those that don't know. So John Cherry III, thank you for this really fun film. Chris, you have anything on this?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy this movie. I loved all the Ernest movies when I was a kid. We watched them all the time. We ran our VHSs of these movies out, not play them anymore. The only reason I didn't add it to the list was because I liked the other two movies more than I liked this one. But I don't dislike this movie. I love this movie. I haven't seen the movie in a while. I should try to find it online and watch it. Because I do. It's just probably my favorite of all the Ernest movies. Maybe right just above Ernest Goes to Camp.
Yeah, it's a really good one. He has 4 amazing films. He has Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Saves Christmas, Ernest Goes to Jail, and Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah.
Those are like his 4 huge hits for him. Those did very well for Jim Varney before he ran into that Toy Story money. And then, unfortunately, not long after that, passed away.
Yeah.
But, this is a great film and a great tribute to him. So with that, we're going to move on to number 8. Now, number 8, I'm going to be honest with you, Chris, I haven't seen this one, but you were so adamant about this being on the list that I was like, okay, I'm going to let you take this and roll with it. I know it came out in 2011. I know that James McAvoy and Bill Nighy and Hugh Laurie and Jim Broadbent all played roles in this animated film, but this animated film is called Arthur Christmas. So, Chris, take it away.
Oh yeah, man! It's when I first went to go see this movie, I was like, this is gonna be horrible. This is another one of those computer animated films that no one is ever gonna watch. And I was really, really pleasantly surprised. It's Aardman Animation, so they do good films. And Sony, I didn't know that at the time. It was like, and basically it's he's the son of Santa. There's another, son of Santa type story. And he, basically what happens is that Santa forgets a present. Like Santa, they go with this super high tech world. The elves are all like IT, and they have all these cool tech instruments, and they do those Mission Impossible type stuff when they're coming into the houses. and like in Santa's like this like tacked up like ship with all these like presents and stuff. And I thought that was a really cool take on Santa. And so basically, they realized that a present forgot to put on the sleigh, and Arthur goes on this adventure to deliver this present. And it was just a really cool, really fun film. And you see, of course, you see this coming of age film with this clumsy guy like learns to become Santa and all that stuff. And it made a lot of money, $147 million. In the box office. I mean, it made 100. So it I don't know if it made money, but
Right.
I enjoyed it.
This was by I think Sony Pictures, Imagine or ImageWorks, and Columbia Pictures, Sony, Columbia, ImageWorks, Aardman
Yeah,
Animation.
the same people that did like Wallace and Gromit and Flushed Away, Pirates,
Yeah.
Some good Shaun the Sheep, really good movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've done some really amazing work, to be honest. And it's interesting that this wasn't stop motion. This was animated.
Yeah, it was computer animated. Yeah.
Yeah, which is not something that you would consider thinking about if you were thinking about Aardman Animations, because they're more always leaned heavily on stop motion animation.
Well, I think Chicken Little was computer animated too, wasn't it?
Chicken Little?
That was their first.
Yeah. Oh, Aardman was involved in Chicken Little?
Yeah, that was their Aardman's first movie.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, Chicken Little, I think that was computer animation. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. Let's go to, this was number 8 on the list. We're going to go to number 7. Number 7, I actually completely agree with you on this, Chris. You gave me your list, and I was like, yes, this is actually a really relatively unknown Christmas type film with Santa Claus in it. And I found it on Netflix a couple years back and found it to just be lovely. The name of this one is called Get Santa. And the main plot of this is, after crashing his sleigh and coming to the attention of the local police, Santa Claus asks a father and son for help to round up his reindeer so he can return home and ensure that Christmas is not ruined for all. This was initially released in 2014 in the UK, directed by Christopher Smith. Has such talent. Again, Jim Broadbent in this. He plays Santa Claus. He plays it
great
perfectly.
Yeah.
One of my favorites in recent memory. Rafi Spall plays the father, Kit Connor the son, and Warwick Davis plays a character called Sally. I believe he was one of the elves, if I recall, Chris.
Yeah, my favorite moment is like they're in like the car, and like, he's really Santa, and Warwick Davis is like, I'm not an elf, and I just remember that was like the one moment for that movie. I always, every time someone's just, no, I'm not this, I'm not an elf, or he's that, I'm not an elf.
Yeah, and at one point, Santa Claus goes to jail, if I'm correct, if I'm remembering this correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And it's kind of like Santa getting hard, he's like,
yeah, pretty much, yeah,
ruling the yard. And that's amazing to me. It just cracked me up the way he changed the hearts of these people in prison and what he could do as a character, as Santa. And it really shows you the power of the spirit of Christmas and Santa Claus himself. So
another person in this movie that may not remember is the current Doctor Who.
The lady?
Yeah, Jodie Whittaker.
I'm sorry. I did not know her name. I haven't finished the Peter Capaldi Doctor Who's yet. I'm on the last season, so I haven't gotten to her yet, but I'm working towards it. There's a lot of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So
well, it was just interesting. Well, yeah, it was just before she was the Doctor and all that stuff. But
that's nice.
She's in it.
I did not know that. I'll have to go back. I definitely need to revisit this film. It's been a couple years, like I said, but I remember it being lovely. Just a wonderful time.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for like English films, and this really gets the English humor, and it's really enjoyable, and it took me really by surprise. And I fell in love with Jim Broadbent's Santa Claus so much that it was like he made me like my favorite Santa.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun in this. We're going to move on to number 6. Number 6 is of no surprise to anybody that this would be on the list. This is A Nightmare Before Christmas. For those that don't know the story, and I'm sure there's one out there, the film is about the misadventures of Jack Skellington. He's Halloween Town's beloved Pumpkin King, who has become bored with his annual routine of frightening people and Then he accidentally in the woods stumbles upon some trees labeled with 4-leaf clover, an Easter egg, and one of them has a Christmas tree on it. And he's just enamored with that tree. So he goes inside of this tree and finds Christmas Town, which is filled with bright colors, warm spirits, snow, and he gets a new lease on life. He then decides the best thing to do is to bring Christmas under his control. So he has Santa Claus brought to him, which ends up meaning he's kidnapped, and he ends up having to take over the role of Santa and trying to save Christmas. But he soon discovers even the best laid plans, can go seriously wrong, and he needs to stop an evil menace named Oogie Boogie who plans on destroying Santa Claus so he can bring Christmas back to all the lovely people in Christmas Town and in and around the world. So it came out in 93, directed by Henry Selick. Not a lot of people know that. Tim Burton produced, I believe, and wrote the story, if I recall. Danny Elfman did the musical score. He also did some singing in it. Tim Burton did a cast, one of the characters, if I recall. Danny Elfman played Jack Skellington, along with Chris Sarandon. Oogie Boogie was Ken Page. Dr. Finkelstein was William Hickey. And Sally was played by Catherine O'Hara, Sally being the love interest of Jack Skellington in this film.
My favorite actress.
Really, Catherine O'Hara?
Yeah, man, and she just she reinvigorated my flame for her acting in Schitt's Creek.
Schitt's Creek.
I forgot great in the Christopher Guest movies and Home Alone.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal in Home Alone, and one of Tim Burton's earliest films, Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
she was great in that too. So this is a really fun film. As far as fond memories, there's a theater here in Los Angeles, California, in Hollywood called the El Capitan, and usually every year they'll play through from Halloween through into Christmas. They'll play A Nightmare Before Christmas. And they do a very fun stage show. They have an organist come out, a piano player. They play music. They'll show images on the stage. It's a very theatrical production along with the film, which is something that the El Cap is very much well known for. It's owned by Disney, and it's a lot of fun. And I usually like to try to go to it. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID restrictions, the theater hasn't been able to open up for Halloween, and it doesn't look likely to open up for Christmas either. So we'll have to watch this again at some point around the holidays, because it's always a fun one. Santa Claus, the character of Santa Claus in this film is really, he doesn't have a huge role in this, but when he's on the screen, he is awesome. He's just a really cool looking Santa with stop motion animation. It's a really cool idea and a really great story.
I know exactly what you're talking about with the El Capitan. I went there probably the year before I moved away from California. And that's the main thing when I see that movie. That's the experience that I remember. It's I remember seeing it at the El Capitan, how awesome it was and how great it was. And it really it elevated the experience of seeing that movie for me. It's definitely one of my favorite overall Christmas, Halloween type movies. I love having that discussion. Is it Halloween? Is it Christmas? Is it Halloween-a-miss? And this is definitely my watch every single year collection of movies.
Yeah, it's a fun one, and it's something that's definitely on my roster yearly. So we are at, what number are we at, Chris? We're at number
5 now.
5. We're halfway through our list. So this one, if I recall, this is the one you've been chomping at the bit to talk about. Now, This one is a foreign film, surprisingly. It came out and released in the U.S. in 2010. It is a movie called Rare Exports. Now, you and I saw this together probably in 2010.
Yeah.
The story of this is a young boy named Pieteri. I don't know. I'm terrible at this. And his friend Joso think a secret mountain drilling project near their home in northern Finland has uncovered the tomb of Santa Claus. However, this is a monstrous, evil Santa, much unlike the cheery Saint Nick of legend. This is more like Krampus is what we're looking at. And when Pietra's father captures a feral old man in his wolf trap, the man may hold the key to why reindeer are being slaughtered and children are actually disappearing all around this town in Finland. It's a very fascinating film. It's one that, I loved it when it came out, and I love it now. I think it's a lot of fun. Chris, I know you love it.
Yeah, I do love it, and I've seen it 6-7 times now, and I can't get enough of it. It has I love anytime they take a Christmas movie and they take anything with Santa and they kind of try to make it different, and make it, but not trying to like do something with it that it's been done before. This is completely different. It's based like on a lot of not necessarily like fantasy, and they take a little bit of like fable, and they take, you know, stuff that Finnish people believed, and they bring that in, myths and stuff like that. And so it's not just like this action movie for the sake of an action movie. It's not a horror movie for the sake of being a horror movie. If I can remember correctly, like the elves are with these weird creatures and stuff, and he controls a whole army of elves, and that was pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure that that's from like the Finnish tradition of and it's just, I just really, and he was a badass villain, and he was like really cool, and the action sequences are really amazing, and somehow you still managed to get the message of Christmas in that movie.
Yeah, somehow they still get that message across. You're right. And you know, being with family and the joy of the spirit of the holiday. So it's a very fascinating, fun horror film. It's just a creepy horror film. Let's just say it's kind of like Gremlins in a way.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna, you know, I don't want to spoil the ending, but I feel like it's important. That, like, you know, there's all this stuff with the children because he's kidnapping all the children and stuff, and you know they save the children, and then they do like, and then they have this kind of like, is this the ending of this movie, or will it continue with the Santas, or not with the Santas, with the elves? And you're like, what's gonna happen next? And I don't want to really say what the ending of it is, but in case anyone's interested in going and seeing it. But it was a really interesting, like, I was like, oh, okay, I see this could work, but will it work?
Right. Yeah. And it ended up really working well. It's such a fun film. And if you guys can seek it out, I highly recommend it. That would be Rare Exports at number 5. Now, number 4, Chris, number 4 should be very well known to everybody at this point. It's also having to deal with a Santa that's not so good. This one is called Bad Santa. This stars Billy Bob Thornton, Brett Kelly, Tony Cox, and Lauren Graham. Now, this is a dark comedy. Billy Bob Thornton plays a character named Willie, and his partner reunite, which is played by Tony Cox, once a year for a holiday scam, kind of a con that they do. Posing as a mall Santa and his elf, they rip off shopping outlets on Christmas Eve. This year, however, Willie is falling apart. He's a depressed alcoholic. He's erratic. His behavior draws a suspicion of mall security, played by the ever so wonderful Bernie Mac. But when he starts to befriend a small boy who keeps coming around, it brings out the kinder side of Willie, and he begins to wonder if there is still some hope for himself and for this kid. So it's an interesting story. It's a dark comedy because the way Billy Bob Thornton acts, you know, you don't often hear "fuck me Santa, fuck me Santa, fuck me Santa" over and over and over in a film when you're dealing with Santa Claus, but you do in this one.
Oh yeah, you might hear it in Fat Man.
That could be true. Yeah, you definitely could probably hear that in Fat Man. But it's so funny, this movie. When it came out, I fell in love with it. I don't recommend the sequel. I think the sequel takes the shine away from the original. So I think that if you want a great one and done film, just watch the first one. Pretend the second one doesn't exist, because it didn't need to.
I agree. I don't think I've ever actually seen the second one.
Chris, it's not good.
It wasn't necessary. I never felt like, oh, I got to go see this movie, because the first one was like, this is all I need. I don't need more.
Right. I think I only saw it when it was on Netflix or something when it popped up, and I checked it out, but it was not great. No, not at all. But the first one's fantastic. He is an alcoholic. He pisses himself while kids are sitting on his lap. He screams at children. He falls asleep. He passes out. He's just an awful human being that finds a way to do some good. And it's a great comedy. It's a great film. It's kind of heartwarming in a way, too, surprisingly.
Yeah, and the great Cloris Leachman's in it, and that's always pleasure
true.
seeing.
That's true. She plays the grandma of the kid played by Brett Kelly, who's Thurman in his name.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he tries to carve a stick and cuts his hand and gets blood on it. And it's just, wow, it's something else. Anyway, that's number 4, I believe. So we're down to number 3. Now this one to me, I may have put at number 1 on the list, to be honest. And that's if we were talking about overall Christmas films. But since we're talking about Santa films, we're talking about Elf. And Elf is a fantastic movie. Elf was directed by Jon Favreau with the screenplay by David Berenbaum. And it starts with Buddy, who's played by Will Ferrell, who was accidentally transported to the North Pole as a toddler and raised into adulthood among Santa's elves. He's basically Bob Newhart plays his foster father, who falls in love with him as a baby and decides to keep him and raise him and take care of him. Unable to shake the feeling that he doesn't fit in, the adult Buddy travels to New York. He finds out that he's not really an elf, he's a human, and his real family, his real father, is in New York. So he goes to New York to try to find him. And as it happens, Walter Hobbs, who's played by James Caan, greatly played by James Caan, a cynical businessman, Buddy tries to connect with him to convince him that he is indeed his father and he is his son. And a DNA test will prove this. Walter then reluctantly attempts to start a relationship with the childlike Buddy, with increasingly kind of crazy results, as Buddy is very much an elf. It's a great fish out of water story, where you have an elf taken from Christmas land, basically, and put into the big, huge New York City, where he has to try to relate to people. And that is where the humor lies in this film, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Santa Claus is played by, if I recall, who is Santa Claus? Ed Asner in this. Is that correct?
Yeah. You're 100% right.
And he plays it perfectly. Just kind of rough and guff, but also very tender-hearted.
Yeah, let me explain something. This is probably one of my all-time favorite movies. The reason that this movie is not number 1 for me, one simple reason, is that Santa's not really in the movie that much, and I didn't really consider it a Santa movie about Santa.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only reason. I was like, well, Santa's in it, and sort of it's about Santa's elf. And Santa's important to the story, but it's not a story about Santa. And that was. So don't get me wrong, I love the movie. It's one of like I said, it's just probably one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It's how I got my first crush on Zooey Deschanel from this movie. And again, like I said, Ed Asner, brilliant as Santa. Yeah, but it was just because I didn't really consider this a Santa. I'm doing air quotes right now. Santa movie.
Yeah, I could agree with you there. It's not necessarily a Santa film. It's more of an elf film, and it's more of a Buddy the Elf film. And it's great. It's a great, fun film, and I highly recommend it if you're one of the 5 people that have yet to see it. That's number 3 on the list. Number 2 is surprising that it's so high up, but should come as real no surprise to people because it is a fantastic movie with a really great premise, and that is The Santa Claus. Now, this movie stars Tim Allen, Eric Lloyd, David Krumholtz, and Randy Crewson. Divorced dad Scott, which is played by Tim Allen, has custody of his son on Christmas Eve. His son is played by Eric Lloyd. After he accidentally kills a man in a Santa suit, falls off his roof, if I recall, and lands and dies. He then picks up a card and is magically transported to the North Pole, where an elf explains that Scott must take Santa's place before the next Christmas arrives. Scott thinks he's dreaming, but over the next several months, he gains weight, grows a white beard, shaves, it continues to grow back no matter what. And maybe that night in the North Pole wasn't a dream after all, and Scott needs to start to prepare to take over the role of Santa Claus. So it's a really fun idea. The clause is actually, they're using a more of what I would like to say lawyer speak when it comes to the title of the film. It's not Santa Claus, it's the Santa Claus, as in there is a clause in this. When you picked up this card, you took on the responsibility of picking up the mantle of Santa. And that was so original and such a great idea. You have to give credit to director John Pasquin for taking this great story and just running with it and creating such a huge film for the holidays that spawned several sequels.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest. Is it the greatest movie on our list that was made? No. But like, you talk to people and you think about the quintessential like Santa Claus movie, and like you got to give it to Tim Allen. He was Santa. Like he is like, you think of Santa and you think of Tim Allen, and like so like this has become in households all over the world. This has become the Santa Claus movie, and so that's why it's so high on the list. And I've recently rewatched the movie, and it's definitely doesn't hold up as well as it should. Partly because the graphics, wasn't made for a lot of money, and some of the graphics are a little dated.
That's from '94, yeah.
Yeah, but it still has so much heart, and Tim Allen is just gold in it. He's so wonderful.
Right. He does really play it really well. And we're talking like peak Tim Allen, just fresh off Home Improvement Tim Allen, just rocking it, just doing a really amazing job as Santa Claus and as a father in general. A dad struggling, trying to do his best. It's a great film, a great story, and it's highly recommended, and that's why it's number 2 on our list.
Yeah, he has a great supporting cast too. David Krumholtz was great as Bernard. Judge Reinhold, always great in everything. And it was Peter Boyle. You can't go wrong with Peter Boyle.
Nope, you can't go wrong with the Boyle.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think it's just where it needs to be on the list.
And to round this out, we are going to go to our number 1 on the list. This is a stop motion animation film. This is Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It came out in 1970, I believe. It was a television special by Rankin and Bass. It starred Mickey Rooney, Fred Astaire, Keenan Wynn, Paul Frees. Just an amazing cast of voice actors to play these amazing characters. And Chris, I know that you put this very high up on the list, which is why it ended up at number 1. So go ahead. It's a 51-minute film. Go ahead and explain why this is so high up on the list for you.
I mean, this was my childhood. I mean, we had like every single year on TV, you would have the California Raisins, like that show where there was like all the little short stop motion features, and then you have Rudolph, and then you have Frosty the Snowman, and then you had Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and that was always like, for me, that was always the one that really got me. Like the Mailman was great, and it was just like, I don't know, the story. I always felt like Rudolph was just kind of boring to me, but having this the story, you have like a gloomy city, and then like you have like this guy named Burgermeister, and
Burgermeister, Meisterburger.
Yeah, like the name is just so like ridiculous. And it's just like, I remember it was like, oh yeah, this is great, when we'd always every year sit down as a family, and we'd the one I remember one year we sat down and we recorded all these movies on VHS. People listening who are younger than like 25 years old, we used to have these big plastic things that you put we call a VCR, and you could record over them. It's like kind of like a DVR, but a physical copy of a DVR. And so we used to, and it kept getting copied over. Like somebody would, I would copy, like somebody would like Power Rangers, like, and every year we'd recopy it because we kind of, I was like, well, we want to watch this over and over and over again because I was huge. We're a Christmas family. That was our holiday. That was our main holiday.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. Christmas was that was our Super Bowl, was Christmas. And so, and you know, we tried to do a lot of stuff as a family. And so we'd sit down and we watch all these movies. And this is the one I think of the most. Like I said, and for me, it had the most fun plot. And there's penguins. There's a penguin in it named Topper. Penguins are my favorite animal. You know, screw reindeer and abominable snowman. Penguin named Topper. So that is why I put this at the top of my list.
It's a great film. I couldn't really argue with your choice on this one. So it definitely is deserving of the number one slot here. It's a classic. Everybody always falls back to this one. It's timeless, really. So that's it. That's number one on our list. That is our list of Santa Claus films, our rankings of top 10 Santa Claus films. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this. Thank you, Chris, for being a guest on this tonight. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And for those that don't know, we are available on a multitude of platforms for podcasts. We have Spotify. We have Apple Podcasts. We have iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Blueberry, and just a host of others, a ton. Odds are, if you throw a dart at a podcasting platform, we are on it. We're also on YouTube. We do usually try to do weekly live podcasts that you can find us on, usually around 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find our podcast on YouTube. We have a lot of fun and a lot of people get involved in the chats and stuff, so it's a really good time. We also are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you ever have any questions or comments, or want to suggest an idea for a podcast, please feel free to reach out to us. We really appreciate it. And me and Chris will be talking some more Christmas times here in the future, I'm sure. But if I don't see you out and about, maybe sometime soon, we will see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening, everybody.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.